Hey, what's up guys? Joker here. Today we're going to be taking a final look at the performance for Blizzard's Overwatch, which just launched recently, and if you remember just a few weeks ago, we actually looked at the performance back on the beta, which ran extremely well. SLI was scaling perfectly on that back on the 980 Ti SLI rig when I still had 980 Ti's in SLI, which now I only have one 980 Ti, but I digress. But I remember, SLI scaling was absolutely perfect, so I have no reasons to believe it would be any differently now, but I'm not testing SLI today, just to let you guys know. But we are testing on 4 different PCs as well as a gaming laptop. That's right, we have 4 different PCs here to test on. I'm going to go over all of the hardware inside those systems and show it to you, as well as the performance on those systems with the average and the minimum frame rates. So before we do that though, I want to go and jump into the options menu to give you guys a brief rundown on the graphics settings which we are using here to keep things as consistent as possible when I was switching between the various systems and testing. Besides changing the resolution, all of the other graphics settings in here stayed at the exact same thing, and that was with VSync off, so I had no FPS limit on or anything like that. And I used the Epic preset with the render scaling set at 100%. By default, this was knocking it down to around 82%, but I wanted to run it at native resolution, so I set it to 100, and I also did turn anti-aliasing off because I wanted to test it with that off for 4K, and to keep it consistent, like I said, between the various systems, I decided to just keep that off through all of my testing. And all of these settings here, like I said, are up at the highest that I could get them to go. And they have a lot of options in here, so if you're out there running a lower tier card and you need to get the performance to scale down for you, it does that very well with this particular title. You can adjust these down and you should be able to get a smooth 60 FPS on a variety of hardware. Even that 370, which was getting sub 60 FPS averages, we could get that up to around 60 if we drop some of these settings just down to high. Also, a great amount of customization in here for our volume. We've got different sliders for all the audio levels, your master volume, as well as your music and sound effects and in-game voice chat. And you have sliders for your mic as well as the voice chat, and you can set your push to talk and all that. So a lot of great customization here for just as far as the sound is concerned. In the controls also, once again, amazing level of customization. You can do multiple key bindings. You can even rebind keys for the controllers, set different crosshairs and colors for your crosshairs. Sensitivity, we've got no smoothing or mouse acceleration on in here in the game. It doesn't even have an option to turn it on that I can see, which is great to see. You don't need smoothing or acceleration in a shooter, in my opinion. And then we've even got, for all the heroes, you can go ahead and set different customization on your key binding. So if you find a key binding set that works differently for McCree that you like better than opposed to, say, maybe like Soldier 76, who has his sprint, assigned to shift. I know myself, I always find myself hitting shift by accident with other characters trying to sprint, and then I have to wait for them to recharge. So that's something to definitely look at if you do want to customize your settings based on the different characters. Starting things off on the lower end with the AMD build, which we did recently on the channel that I'm actually giving away. If you haven't signed up yet for that giveaway, I'll put the Gleam link down in the description below. But we did that full build video on the channel for this system, which is running the R7 370 from Gigabyte, which is factory overclocked, along with an FX 6300 and 8 gigabytes of RAM. Testing that at 1920 by 1080 was able to get an average of 46.3 FPS and a minimum of 35. From there, I switched over to the build that I did also recently on the channel for my brother that's got the FX 8320E in there and a GTX 950 also with 8 gigabytes of RAM. That got an average of 52.9 also at 1080p and a minimum of 31. So that was a pretty good matchup there to see the 950 versus the 370. The 950 did edge it out in the average FPS with 52.9 versus 46.3, but the 370 actually won in the minimum. So that's definitely something interesting to look at there. From there, I did move over to the gaming laptop, which I have on hand, the Acer Predator 15, which is using the GTX 980M in there. I was curious just to see how it would be able to run on this gaming laptop since I have it out, and we're going to be doing a video on it pretty soon. That was getting an average of 88 FPS and a minimum of 66. Very impressive for a laptop, certainly. From there, we switched over to my 2 other desktops that I have here. The GTX 970 Mini ITX rig, that's running the i5 6600K, overclocked at 4.6 gigahertz and 8 gigabytes of DDR4 memory. We tested that at 1920 by 1080 as well as 1440p. So at 1080p, the GTX 970 was getting an average of 116.8 FPS with a minimum of 94. When I moved that over to 1440p, we saw it drop down on the average to 89.6 FPS and a minimum of 67. So you could see there the 970 with the settings completely cranked up even at 1440p was able to maintain over 60 frames. And even in some testing at 4K, if you drop down certain settings in there, maybe even the resolution scaling a little bit, you should be able to even run this game at 4K on a GTX 970 if you just tweak those settings just a little bit. And then we moved over to my big 980 Ti rig, which is just running on the single 980 Ti right now, mind you. I don't have the SLI on hand currently, so we just tested on the single GPU, but it really didn't need the second 980 Ti for any of the resolutions I tested at. So I started off testing at 1440p, where we saw an average of 106.8 FPS and a minimum of 70. From there, I moved it over to 4K, so that's 3840 by 2160. There, we got an average of 71.6 and a minimum of 52. So we did see the minimums drop down below 60 there, but still very playable for me, even at 4K. Then we also switched over to ultra-wide, 3440 by 1440, which netted us an average of 103.7 and a minimum of 70. So the single 980 Ti more than capable of handling ultra-wide resolutions. But I did want to note that this game actually exhibits pillarboxing, which is the black bars on the left and right side of the screen. If you're familiar with letterboxing, where you see black bars on the top and bottom in a standard 16:9 movie or something like that, well, pillarboxing is the opposite of that with ultra-wide screens, and the reason for that is from Blizzard is they're saying that they don't want players with an ultra-wide screen to have a competitive edge, so that's why they don't have it actually spanning across the entire display, even though you can actually set it to 3440 by 1440, and that is also extended to people using, well, extended displays. If you're using like iFinity or Nvidia Surround, if you try to use, all the three screens, you're just going to wind up seeing the center of the display. And if you're at 16 by 10 even, with multiple displays, you're going to see a bit of the screen start to edge out onto the other monitors because of that pillar boxing. Alright, so there you guys have it. I hope you enjoyed this comprehensive set of benchmarks that I did across the 4 different PCs and the gaming laptop. This is something I do want to continue to do going forward. I wish I had more cards to test. I really, really do. I'm sorry that we had to test 4 Nvidia cards and 1 AMD. As soon as I can get more AMD cards in on the channel, I am going to add them to my stock of cards that need to be tested on future titles. This is something I want to continue to expand moving forward, and because of your guys' support, using like Amazon links and all that stuff and the CD keys links, that is allowing me to be able to continue to expand and get more hardware in for the channel. And eventually, I mean, if I had it my way, I'd have like 30 PCs just on a rack, just lined up ready to test every single game that comes out, and I'd have a room full of benchmark monkeys like Luke over at Linus Tech Tips to just benchmark everything, just benchmark it all. Like that's eventually the dream, but right now we're working on it. So we had 4 PCs and a laptop. I mean, come on, this was pretty good. This was pretty good. Let's go, guys. Bring it in. Let's bring it in for a hug. All right, but I'm going to go ahead and get out of here, guys. Leave your feedback down in the comments below if there was anything I missed in my testing that you want to see me introduce in more performance reviews in the future. This is something I'm always looking to evolve and improve over time, so your guys' feedback really is helping to shape these performance reviews going forward, and that's why you're seeing what you saw here today, because I saw some feedback on the Doom performance review that I was less than happy about because I kind of rushed through that one, and I decided with this one, I wasn't going to do that. I wanted to take my time. I wanted to test everything that I could possibly think of. So if I missed anything, please tell me. Constructive criticism is always appreciated. But I'm going to catch you guys next time. Ta-ra.